after one of the most audacious and quite frankly unbelievable moves through the opening turns of this Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Max Verstappen never looked back. He took that lead from Oscar Piastri off the start, and so he has triumphed here in Imola. And once again, this 2025 season and the fight for the championship takes another twist, another turn, and things tighten and close up right at the very top. McLaren rounded out the podium, but that was a race of jeopardy, of strategy and driver skill. Let's unpack it all here in your post-race show. And look at the scenes here, my goodness me. The fans of Imola flooding this magnificent racetrack, and of course, the final year of its contract as well. And what a race we have been treated to here. So much jeopardy. We were all over every screen we possibly could to work out who was pitting when, why they were pitting. On the pit wall, I can't imagine what it would have been like. Ruth will come to you on that. But Davide, Max Verstappen, that move through the opening turns here, never looked back, did he? It's seemingly, while everyone else had a bit of an opportunity to make something of their race, he was long gone.
Yeah, he surprised me once again, because it seems that the start was not fantastic. I mean, the first jump was okay, but then the first break, he braked so deep, and he surprised completely Piastri. And then the race pace that had during the race, all the race long, with his Red Bull was unbelievable. Was the best in the track today. Well deserved. That move, you know, at the first lap you need to have such a big talent to do something like this, because it's not something that you test during the weekend. You start with the full tank, in the middle of the straight completely stop. So you do the start, and then that break you need to feel it. Seems that he's feeling better than everyone else in the world. Well done to him.
Yeah, he is. And we're getting used to saying that, four-time world champ, and he's holding on to this title fight. Ruth, strategy-wise, there is so much to unpack from this race, and shoulda, woulda, coulda. Hindsight's going to be a wonderful thing for all of us. Nobody knew when those safety cars and VSCs were going to come out today, but they did play their part. For Max Verstappen, though, in terms of how Red Bull implemented their strategy, what did they get right today?
I think they got pretty much absolutely everything right. You know, you could see the confidence of Max on the grid, overtook like it was 2021, you know, standing on the car at the end there doing the iRacing pose like he did last year. And that confidence seemed to be the whole Red Bull team. You know, his engineer, GP, was there. The execution, they held their own, they stuck to their plan, they did that balanced one-stop strategy. You know, and I think Yuki Tsunoda, did a fantastic race himself. I think he made up something like 10 positions, but also the data from that hard tyre, I'm sure helped them understand that they needed to go deep into the race on the medium. Brilliantly executed. They didn't flinch. They were able to box under that virtuous safety car. 10 out of 10 Red Bull, 10 out of 10 Max Verstappen.
We were saying, weren't we, if McLaren put Lando Norris on that hard tyre to start, they'd have some of the knowledge from that early stint of how it might perform. They didn't. It was medium starters, but that was for the start, on which, of course, you needed some purchase. You needed some traction. And Alex Brundle is here to talk us through that move from Max Verstappen. My goodness me.
My goodness me, indeed. What a move it was. So much of it done in terms of car positioning on the way down to Tamburello. Like you say, Davide, not the best launch. I'm going to slow it down immediately, though. Watch Verstappen's head here. He wants to know, straight after the launch, where everyone is. He's having a bit of a check across the right-hand side. We're looking for Lando Norris over to our right-hand side. Now he's having a bit of a check to the left. He wants to see exactly where George Russell is. It's beautiful car positioning down to Tamburello, because he gets the car on this outside line and he puts it in this perfect position. That doesn't allow George Russell to dive across and take his gap that he wants to post the car into in a few moments' time. But look, he's left just under a car's width on the outside as well. So he hasn't allowed Lando Norris to come charging down his outside either. So beautifully, beautifully positioned. He's on the grippier, less bumpy outside line. And then that's the technical stuff. This is just pure touch on the brake pedal. The magic moment, of course, here, believe it or not, this is what race car drivers call a compliment, the way Max Verstappen turns in here, because he leaves this tiny gap and firmly believes that Oscar Piastri is not going to understeer across the road into him. From here, according to the racing guidelines, Max Verstappen owns then this second apex and can drive off through the second and final parts of Tamburello. When you watch it play out, it becomes all the more clear from the trackside cameras. Not that much of a good start, but that circuit positioning in the grand scheme of the start as it played out for Max Verstappen, right here, look. Circuit positioning, he's not allowing Lando Norris down there. He's not allowing George Russell across here. Beautifully executed. And then the magic stuff down the outside to track position for the early stint. That's how you start a race, folks.
Is how you do it, Alex Brundle. Thank you so much. And what a start it was. And we have our first racing driver in the makeshift studio here with us. And a big welcome back. So happy to see you again. Franco Colapinto, welcome back to Formula One. And look, I know it was a tricky day yesterday, of course, and it looked a tricky race out there, but just talk us through it. Talk us through how it felt for you getting back behind the wheel of the car, doing a start, implementing some stints. What was it like?
It was good. It was very exciting to start the weekend back with the team, with Alpine. Of course, new car, new engineers, new people, but they have been all very supportive. They have been very helpful to get me used to the car quick, get me understand the tools, the tires. The tires have been very soft this weekend. It was not the ideal weekend to get in, but I think overall it was a decent weekend. I was doing a lot of steps, lap after lap, session after session, and by the end I was getting closer, especially in performance. I couldn't do much of high fuel running before the race. Of course, it was a pity yesterday in quali. The margins are very tight, and just going to the limit of it, and sometimes just those little mistakes when you don't quite know the limit of the car yet. But today in the race was very positive. I made the mediums last very long. I think it was one of the longest stints, which was a bit surprising. And we were on a one stop to the end with the hards. Just after a couple of laps, I put the hards. The VSC came out and it killed my race, kind of. So I think since then it was a bit more tricky, but very good pace in the car. Good pace, especially for the first half of the race, and then bit unlucky with the strategy. But overall, a good weekend, good learnings, and good data for the team.
Ruth?
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job resetting after yesterday. I particularly like that you said thank you to the guys in the garage. I know Ryan, your number one mechanic, already said that was lovely. For the strategy, as you say, did the team ever consider starting on that hard tyre? Because you did such a good job with the tyre management, you potentially could have got it all the way to the safety car.
Yeah, I think so. I think would have been maybe a bit better if we would have started on the hard. But I think, with the news after the race, it's a bit more easy to decide. But the kind of a bit more safe plan for me to finish the race, to get all the learnings, and the points looked very far away. So I think we kind of try to maximize the learnings, and not only the position, but also the information we were getting, the learning I was having. And it was a good day in the car. Of course, not the result we were hoping for me or for Pierre, but it's always a bit more tricky to stay there in the race for us.
Davide?
Probably today not the best version of Alpine in the race pace. Also, Gasly was struggling a bit today, we need to admit it. But I think you are going to have some track in the future that are going to suit your car very well, and you are going to be able to shine like you did last year. Because one thing that you don't miss you is the speed immediately as soon as you go into the car. You feel that you can do it or no?
I feel like I can do it. Yesterday was a bit too much speed, maybe. But the guys in the garage did a mega job putting the car back together for today. It was a lot of work, a bit of extra warm-up for Sunday morning. And yeah, they just have been amazing all weekend. Good in the pit stops and very supportive all weekend round. So I think better trucks are coming for us. Especially Monaco, it's gonna be, I think, better. Still a very high confidence track, and I'm not there quite yet, but yeah, still gonna keep learning the car, and probably by quali I'm gonna be a bit more comfortable.
Well, Franco, you say the confidence you're hoping to build. You haven't got long till Monaco, and you're in a really intense triple header. But I guess that's the best way for that confidence to build. So yes, you're back in Formula One now. So what are the next steps for you mentally, physically? How are you physically feeling also from
Good, pretty,
from the...
I mean, quite impressive that I've been decent.
You've been training
actually.
hard then?
Looks like it. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I can now I can lie a little bit maybe, but I think it's been a good race. Also for the physical part, I have been getting more used to the car every session after session, and the physique feels. I think tomorrow I'm gonna be very sore. It's gonna hurt a bit the body. That's normal. Luckily, sometimes to to get back the body together as well as the car for Monaco. But after Monaco, I'm sure the confidence, tracks are not going to get more tricky than that. So it's going to all be easier after Monaco.
Oh, great stuff. Well, it's wonderful to see you back in Formula One. Thanks, Franco, as ever, for coming on our show as well. We always enjoy having you on.
First driver to come in.
You were our first one?
At least I won there.
P1 for you. Thank you, Franco. Gracias. Thank you so much. Great to see him back. And also great for him to come in. Look, it's not been obviously the race he'd have wanted, but he'll have got a lot of learning done out there, won't he, Ruth?
Yeah, I have to say, I think I'm really impressed. Obviously someone's had a word with him, or his management team's had a word with him since yesterday. That's a completely different Franco than the Franco yesterday that was pushing 105%, round that corner that caused the accident. Today's Franco was calm, cool, collected, and that Alpine just didn't have the race pace. We saw even on Pierre's car on high fuel in Friday, it was really quick over one time lap, and I think, I have to say, I'm excited to see what he can do in Monaco. And he's already won this race once in junior Formula. You don't have to win it all the time.
I'm sure he'd have liked to win it in Formula One, though, wouldn't he?
True, good point.
But look, he's already playing the team game as well. At one point, he was let through. He let Pierre Gasly through, and as you mentioned, on a track where track position was key, they had the one lap stuff dialed down, but obviously the race just unfolded in a way where we saw 2, even 3 stops out there. Let's take a look then at the race highlights.
What a racetrack this is. One of the classics for round 7. Good launch off the line. Verstappen roars around the outside in spectacular fashion. Unbelievable.
That was utterly brilliant.
Charles Leclerc looking to the inside of Pirotella, and he gets through. Gasly off the racetrack. Lando Norris out of the slipstream. Can he go around the outside and pinch the apex first? He can. Another great overtake in this Grand Prix. A slow stop for Oscar Piastri by modern Formula One standards. 3.6 seconds. Looked a lot quicker for Lando Norris. Was a lot quicker. Ocon in the Haas pulls over.
So why did McLaren pit Norris? They're 1 lap too early. Verstappen emerges. Look how far back Piastri is.
The local hero will not see the checkered flag. We have a full safety car. Max Verstappen takes us back to full racing speed. Lando Norris trying to go past Oscar Piastri. Round the outside of his teammate.
Brilliant move from Norris.
Trying to be careful. Around the outside and into the gravel. And Lewis Hamilton to P4. 4 victories in a row at Imola. Max Verstappen wins.
Arms in the air then for Max Verstappen, who wins his first race since becoming a father. Ruth, there we saw an overtake, Lando Norris on Oscar Piastri. We were talking and saying, why have McLaren, or could McLaren have swapped the cars earlier, given Lando a crack at trying to catch Max, and then if he doesn't, swap them back? It wasn't something they did. They let the racing naturally take place. But is it something perhaps they would have considered or could have considered?
Yeah, I mean, you had the joy or the terror of having to sit next to me for that whole race as you saw me yell at the screen.
We were all yelling.
Swap the cars! Yeah, for me, I would have done it. You can't ever speak on the mentalities in other teams. And, obviously I was raised in Ferrari, which was all about the Drivers' Championship. And for me, it was very clear that with those old tyres that McLaren they couldn't stop Oscar again. So let's make it clear, they didn't have any tyres left, so they didn't make a mistake at that point with Oscar on strategy. But now Oscar has the old tyres. Lando's got the fresh boots on, as Jolyon would call them. He's the only driver now that can get that win. And you could hear, I think, on the radio, he was talking about it under the safety car, about the restart. Even if, obviously you can't change positions of the safety car, but the second after, I would have swapped them. I'd have at least tried to have a crack at the win. But, I just wanted Lando to have a go.
You can play strategies if you want. Watch the F1 extended highlights over on YouTube, and Jolyon Palmer will be giving all of his analysis as well on F1 TV in the cool-down room. We'll take a slightly more frivolous look at proceedings, slightly less hard tyre data going on in that show, but worth a watch nonetheless. But it's one of fine margins, isn't it, Davide, of how to get this right between driver feedback, between pit wall for the drivers. How much of a part do they play in making decisions like this?
I think that Max Verstappen confused them. I mean, at the beginning they stopped too early Piastri, looking the race after. Easy to say after the race. Piastri was way too early. with Norris, they did the maximum, but just Verstappen was already gone. And in the last few laps, when we ask why they didn't swap the drivers, we need to realize that at the first lap after the safety car, you cannot do it because you have the group. And then the second lap, Verstappen was already gone. So. And was so quick today, Verstappen with this Red Bull that surprised everyone. So to be honest, I don't think there was the margin to affect the Verstappen and Red Bull victory today, but probably the move at the start of Verstappen create a lot of difficulties in McLaren house.
So let's look back then on those first pit stop timings. We saw a number of really early pitters. Ruth, were they panicking, do you think? Because we saw some pitting on lap 11, we saw some pitting on lap 29. So where was that medium tyre?
So what happened was the Haas came in on lap 1, I think it was for damage, and then around lap 10, some of the back markers started to go to cover. That's really normal for back markers because they're boxing into free air. The undercut is powerful. You know, it makes sense for them to go early. It also kind of makes sense for Charles, who's stuck, to go early, less to gain. But what actually it seemed to happen was McLaren got a bit confused. I mean, this is obviously, I'm putting words in their mouth, but they did 3 slow laps with Oscar Piastri. George, on those old mediums, he did have to box because he was losing a lot of time. And they reacted too quick, and that Oscar came out into traffic. You know, for me, there's 2 things here at play. One, they boxed too early. You know, as a strategist, it's not a criticism, it's just, you know, in hindsight, it's very clear they went in too early. They then put themselves at risk of having a tyre offset to Max, letting him go away. Also, at some point in the race, you know, it can then have a safety car, which then did happen, that you don't end up having tyres. Also, in terms of Max's strategy, when he's pushing on, they've got that help from Yuki Tsunoda. You know, they've got a car on the hard tyre. Ferrari had a car on the hard tyre. Mercedes had a car on the hard tyre. They had that information across the team. So I think that also made it a little bit more difficult for themselves today. And obviously, the second they came out onto the hard tyre, they were then giving the feedback. So Will Joseph was giving the feedback to Lando to stay out.
Right, I've got so many questions for McLaren that it's so easy for us to ask standing here, isn't it? Because we're not on that pit wall making real decisions in real time, and we've got the benefit of hindsight. Let's hear though from your P3 man today on how we saw that. Of course, he started on pole, P3, the most he could get from it. Championship leader Oscar Piastri.
Hey, Oscar. It seems odd to say commiserations on a podium, but I kind of just feel like nothing really went your way today. Just talk me through how you're feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a bit disappointed. It was a tough race. Yeah, not a lot of things went our way today. I think obviously turn 1 wasn't great from me, and then yeah. I think we decided to go one way with the strategy, and I don't think it was the right way in the end. But at that point, it seemed like a decent idea. So and then afterwards, pretty much every VSC and safety car was poorly timed. So yeah, just a tough race. I think to carve out third is still okay, obviously, but yeah, not quite the afternoon we were looking for.
Were you surprised a little bit about the overall pace as well, and is that a little bit of a concern given just how good Red Bull looked today?
Yeah, I think they were definitely quicker than we expected. So yeah, that was not ideal, obviously, but yeah, it would have been interesting to see what the difference of clean air made. But yeah, even in the first stint, I was struggling a little bit, and that's why we went early. So yeah, some things to look at for sure.
Right, see you in the next one. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go. He's confirming struggling a little bit in that first stint, so he went early. But I'd imagine, you know, hindsight, they may do a few things. They may have done a few things differently, given the chance, and obviously Oscar Piastri as well, seeing his teammate overtake him as Lando had that fresher rubber on because he pitted, of course, under the safety car, alongside Verstappen and Albon as well. I've been told we've got Andrea Stella joining us soon, so I'm keeping one eye out for him. But Davide, how do you think Oscar Piastri moves on from here? As a driver now leading the championship, he has it under control, it seemed, after Miami, but now one step back, another twist to the tail.
Yeah, but Okay, he took the overtake at the first corner, and that was an hard one to take because that move was unbelievable and probably got surprised. But then he raced very well. He made so many mistakes. He made so many overtakes during the race. No one mistakes. His race pace was not the best of the season, but he didn't have any mistakes at all. At the end, he tried to hold the position to his teammate, but his teammate has 18 laps less on tires, so we cannot complain. He had the overtake on Verstappen. He took the overtake on Verstappen. He's the only weak point, and then all the rest is positive. He's leading the championship. He lost only 3 points to his teammates. I think that he's going to be fine. He's a strong man. Mentally, he's probably one of the best. So I'm not worried for him. He's going to shine again for sure from the next weekend.
How does Lando bounce back, Ruth, as well, though? Because qualifying was tough for him, and he's maximised things today, and the safety cars falling luckily and unluckily in a sense for him. But how does he bring it all together for a complete weekend?
You know, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because, like, McLaren got like P2 and P3. They're getting podiums every single week.
It's amazing we're talking like this.
We're talking like this. And you know, the only reason Oscar even lost that race is because it was one of the greatest moves we've seen in years. So, you know, it's not that they did a bad job. It's just the margins are so tight that even if you're 0.1% off of the pace, you don't win the race. You know, like it came down to 300ths yesterday where Oscar was on top. And I think that's what Lando needs to focus on, is that he's not miles away. You know, maybe he should watch our ghost car and actually see how physically close he is on track at all times to his teammate and to the front, because I think it is just marginal gains. He needs to believe he's a winner. You know, I think, you know, I think he's got the talent to be a world champion. I think multiple drivers on the grid have got the talent to be the world champion. If he gets pole in Monaco, I think that'll just about do it.
And Davide, for Lando Norris as well, the overtake on Oscar Piastri, we've been seeing in recent races that not hesitation, but just taking a little bit longer perhaps to get a move done than, for example, we saw a clinical move from Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. This one, though, what a statement. Getting it done. I know he's got fresher rubber, I know that, but
it was good because he was close, and they almost touched themselves. So
it was close,
I think it was not an easy one, and he did this maneuver twice during the race, one with him and one at the beginning with Russell. So I got surprised because that one was very hard to do, and then was also very risky. So at the end, he had these overtakes, and for him is positive, because I think today the race pace of Norris was a bit quicker than his teammate. And some of other races we saw that in the race pace Norris is a bit quicker than Piastri, and then he didn't got the result. So I'm happy for him that he ended up in the podium. He didn't win the race, but I think he drove very well today, and I'm happy for him.
And of course we saw coming out the pit lane alongside Alex Albon as well. He had to make sure he got that right. No further investigation to that, but it's all those fine margins, as we say.
It's tiny margins. And you just mentioned Albon, and I got like a pang because I really wanted him to get a podium today. I know it didn't. You know, he drove phenomenally. Williams did an absolute phenomenal job. But you say that is a really good example of the fine margins. You know, when Carlos lost his drive at Williams, I bet he never thought when we came back to Italy he'd be in front of a Ferrari. And that is just testament to the hard work of every single team, the fine margins, you know, 0 to 0. You know, the Astons, they arguably have the second slowest car, and they were up there. Again, it's just about world-class basics, making sure you find that 0.1%, that like 0.1 second. So I think anyone's got to have that focus going into the Monaco race.
All about marginal gains, and on a track where every single millimetre really matters and your race can go very wrong. We head to Monaco next, of course. Okay, we've lost Andrea Stella somewhere to the mass crowd behind me, so we'll move it along then to talk Ferrari, because from utter disappointment to, I think, probably the maximum or near enough they could get from today. Maybe if it had been a few laps longer, Lewis may have just ended up on the podium on his first home race for Ferrari. But Marietta is with Fred Vasseur.
Fred, from 11th and 12th to 6th and 4th, how do you feel about the way your drivers fought their way through the field today?
For sure, it's a good Sunday for us, with a very good recovery, a very strong pace, a good strategy, well executed, well managed, and I think it's thanks to the team and thanks to the drivers, and we can be proud of the job done today. if you want to be a bit more aggressive or pessimistic, is that we are paying the price today of the quali of yesterday. It was the case in Miami, the case in Jeddah. It means that we have to do a better job on Saturday.
Actually, Lewis said yesterday that he felt that the result in qualifying didn't really reflect what was happening in the car, that he felt this weekend the car was coming alive, that he had just been unlucky in the qualifying session.
Yeah, but I don't trust more luck. That way, it's not luck that when you have the same issue in Jeddah, Miami, and in Imola, it's just that we have to do a better job.
Thank you very much.
We'll come to Ferrari then, and then the race they've had in just a moment. But we can welcome now a man who's standing here, P5.
Yeah.
Alex Albon of Williams. Alex, that seemed a busy race out there.
Yeah.
You're at the moment with Leclerc, you're at the moment you were fighting the McLarens. But how good does that sound standing here with a Williams car to say we're fighting the Ferraris and the McLarens on merit, on pace, and getting things operationally, procedurally right as well?
Yes, I think that was the kind of takeaway from my race. It was not that, it's not like we got lucky, really. We were ending up in these positions. We had a really good first stint, which unlocked the whole race for us. I had a really good deg on a tyre that was degging a lot for everybody else. I think only the top teams were able to extend that C5, and I was maybe the only other car that could do it with them. And then, and it was working into our favour. I think in any situation, P4 was what we should have achieved today, and in the end, I don't think it's Charles's fault, but we got a bit rough and lost position to Lewis at the end, and that was P5. So weird to be able to finish P5 and be disappointed. Yeah.
Is that your overriding feeling? Is disappointment?
Yeah.
It could have been. At one point we were saying it could have been a podium.
Honestly, cry. If he was on the podium,
I'd have been very happy for you, Alex. I admit, and Williams, of course.
Thank you. I did too. There was 2 times I thought a podium was possible. The first time was when I was actually in P3. I saw Oscar catching me, and I thought, okay, he's catching me a bit too quick here, quicker than I can really hold on to. And then the second time was actually in my eagerness to get past Charles. I knew that Oscar had old tyres on in front, and I felt great. I felt super, and I kind of regret it now because I could have been a bit more patient to Charles. And I felt like, because I was going after Oscar in front, I felt like I had to do the move then. Oh well.
So you're kind of thinking, working one step ahead of yourself rather than being in that moment,
maybe. If I maybe waited a couple more laps and drained Charles's battery a bit more, I could have got past him a bit easier. But anyway.
Alex, is that a case of getting used to battling at the sharp end here?
Maybe. I think the top teams, the top drivers, they're a bit more elbows out, actually, weirdly, than the midfield teams. But no, I enjoy it. I mean, I would love to be able to say every weekend we're going to be fighting with them. I don't think that's the case, but I've been proving wrong twice in a row now.
You keep saying this to me, and I'm like, Alex, you're still standing here, P5. Guys, go ahead.
Alex, you are a top driver, by the way. That was absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
I did tell Lily you were going to be good here this week, by the way, so that's all me. From what we were looking, we have similar strategy tools to the tools that your team has.
Yeah.
With our numbers, we had you getting that podium and taking Oscar on pace, on the pace that you were doing. In the car, did you think that you could get Oscar when you get up to him with the pace that you had?
Are you talking about in the middle of the stint?
Yes, yeah.
So, without going too technical, I felt like we underflapped the car, so we didn't put enough front wing when we went on the hard tyre. And because when you don't have enough front wing in the car, you can always manage the rears. When you know, Davide, when the fronts are understeering, it's very hard to manage. You kind of just have to drive slower, and you have to underdrive the high-speed corners especially. And I felt like I couldn't go quicker without damaging the front tyres, so I felt a little bit stuck, and Oscar was just pushing on and going through it. When we flap corrected for the last stint, and we put the right amount of flap in the car, then I felt like I could push, and then the pace came back. So yes.
Davide, anything?
Just to say, I know that maybe it's not the best strategy, but this aggressivity, this anger with the team in the team radio, this elbow out with your rivals in the track, we start to loving it.
Okay.
Believe me.
I hope you're liking it, not
It's the way.
Okay.
Fans is getting there. my friend.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Really
man.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We are very much enjoying it. And actually, we're going to throw it now to Alex Brundle in the studio to look at one of your moves against Leclerc, but you are free to go. Thank you very much. Well
Thank you, guys.
Well
Bye-bye.
done.
Bye-bye.
Oh, well, since Albon's standing right there, I'm quite glad my opinion is as it is about this one, to be honest. Alex Albon down the outside of Charles Leclerc. Ferrari asked him to give the position back, I think, correctly here. Leclerc has no tyres on the car. He also has no tyres available in the pit lane because Ferrari physically do not have a tyre at this point in the race to put on the car and give Leclerc more performance. Now, the racing guidelines as they are mean that if a driver is around the outside of a corner, when they meet the front tyre, wheel to wheel like that, at that point the driver on the outside has earned racing room. Guidelines also bias the first part of any complex of corners, meaning that Alex Albon effectively owns this piece of racetrack here, giving Charles Leclerc room on the outside, but he's effectively earned the right to that piece of racetrack by getting to there, doesn't receive it, and therefore Ferrari and Leclerc react in the next few laps and ask Leclerc to give the position back to Alexander Albon. Smart move, because a 5-second penalty for Leclerc would have put him right at the back of the points-paying position. So, yeah, very much likely potential for a penalty there for Leclerc if the position wasn't given back, and a smart move to let Alexander Albon back through.
Yeah, it was. And look, we've just heard from the pen of what Charles Leclerc was saying, thanks Alex, that he's driving frustrated, and that, I mean, that must be a horrible position to start a Grand Prix from, driving frustrated. It's not a positive emotion. And Ruth, we could see that in kind of how he was driving as well. Davide, first to that point on his mindset.
Yeah, to be honest, we could feel the anger. Also in the defense at the end against Albon. So, yeah, but he did a good race. At the beginning of the race, he was faster than Hamilton. He recovered position quicker. I mean, he was there. At the end, he was unlucky because he had the bad choice with the tires and no tires at the end. He lost a bit the patience. But anyway, I think it was positive, his race.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tale of two halves, right? They had to box early because they were stuck. So from the point that they boxed, I think he was frustrated from yesterday, to be honest, because they boxed early, which I don't think was a bad call because they were stuck. But then he was pumping in purple laps on a hard tyre. So it looked like they'd committed to a kind of two-stop strategy because everybody else was saving tyres. I think they have to reset. Monaco, he's going there with good memories. It's his home. You know, his house is there. I think he's got to reset and re-go again. Today was lost yesterday for him.
I guess the lure of Monaco next week may well help that emotion, but it could ultimately pile on a bit more pressure, knowing the position he was in last year. Other side of the garage, Lewis Hamilton then, P4, could have been a podium so close. We'll hear now from him and see what he had to say about it.
Hey Lewis, a heck of a fight back today. Is that the kind of stuff that you would have dreamed of? To be in red, to be fighting through the field, to hear the roar in your name every time you got a pass in? It must be something special.
I mean, obviously I couldn't hear him, but to drive in front of the Tifosi today, this weekend, has been, you know, a highlight of the year so far. And you know, there's a lot of pressure on us as a team with not struggling through the year so far with the car and particularly with our qualifying. So to have such a strong race and to be moving forwards, making ground, it was such a great feeling. And I would say for me, I don't remember the last time I had a race like that where you're moving forwards. I'm sure there was one maybe last year, but this one's different, obviously, because I'm in the red car, and I haven't done that yet. So to finally have that connection, that synergy with the car today and progressing was a really great feeling.
Does it feel like, when you get that feeling, that there is a bit of light now? There's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, that you're cracking it? When you're making changes, they're actually working?
I mean, I don't want to jinx it, so
okay.
For sure, there's lots of positives to take away from today, and we had pace. So we really need to dissect and understand where, what, and why. I did think we would make an improvement this weekend with something we try and fix, and I think there's more to come. But the setup was really good. This car felt freaking mega in setup-wise. And as I said, the strategists, the team did a fantastic job with strategy calls and pit stops. So overall, mega job for Ferrari.
Great. Thank you.
One of the hard starters, wasn't he? And he made it pay off. It's great to see a happy Lewis Hamilton after so many despondent interviews. So glimmers of hope then potentially for Ferrari in terms of how that car was feeling, but importantly in getting the calls right, of course, from the pit wall. Esteban Ocon, of course, a DNF today. He was brought out the first VSC, and then heartbreak for Kimi Antonelli on home soil. Loss of throttle control is the word from the team, and that brought out the full safety car in recovering his stricken Mercedes. Davide, a word then on Antonelli, how he bounces back from this weekend, because yes, it's another race weekend, but it's one that has so much meaning for him.
Yeah, and then for Antonelli was not so positive because he didn't find the speed also in qualifying. And then he had this technical problem during the race that switched on the race of Ferrari. From that point on, Ferrari got on fire and recovered 4 and 6. But for Antonelli, not a positive one. Russell was better than him all weekends long. Also, Russell struggling during the race, and they got surprised why their race pace was not amazing and not fantastic today. Probably Russell had something. You told me in the grid that Russell was suffering about some issue.
He said
and probably you were right,
the
Laura.
rears. He said during the race as well, track rod, the rears are moving even in a straight line. So Mercedes may have to do a bit of deep diving into perhaps what was going on there with George Russell's car, but not a weekend that Mercedes will want to remember. DNF and then a P7. And we saw a fair bit of movement into the points and ultimately out of the points. We'll start with the negative, out of the points. Fernando Alonso, that radio message. This is going to be torture. I'm the unluckiest driver in the fill-in-the-blanks world. Oh,
yeah.
Because Aston showed so much promise after qualifying with that medium gamble, and they had track position where it's important, but wasn't the race for that.
Yeah, look, I think they were the gold star from yesterday. They nailed the strategy. They put a car that's probably the slowest up onto Q3 with both cars. They paid the price for it today. I think speaking to the team, they knew it was going to be a slog. I didn't think they thought it would be as much of a slog. The car was slow. So that's the first thing. The car was just really, really slow. So I think the best strategy is always just to have a fast car. But they also didn't box under that second safety car, which meant that then he had old tyres. So I think that compounded the problem. I felt sorry for Fernando. But anyway, he's fine. He'll bounce back.
He's yet to score points this season. We keep saying it. And Aston Martin at some point are going to look ahead, of course, to 2026. Isaac Hadjar and Yuki Tsunoda then ended up in the top 10. Let's go to the positive for Yuki Tsunoda. From that horror crash, getting on that hard tyre, giving Red Bull the info they need to aid Max Verstappen's race, but equally hard starting Yuki Tsunoda was able to use the race for himself. What a performance from him, guys.
Yeah, amazing. I really, really thought that was a brilliantly executed again by Red Bull. And it was basically, you know, him and Lewis coming through, really making that strategy work so well for both of them, turning a bad Saturday into a good Sunday.
And Isaac Hadjar as well.
Yeah. He's been amazing.
Quick all weekend. He's been quick all
amazing all weekend. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just been very, very fast, hasn't he? Good job. Good job.
I think he's been the brightest surprise of the year so far, in the sense of, as a rookie coming in with such limited F1 experience compared to the other rookies, and not in that fast Mercedes, we're seeing something really special from him and turning things around after that really upsetting start for him in Australia. Okay, we head to Monaco next. We are in the thick of the European season. This, the first of a triple header, and Monaco, the jewel in the crown, comes next. 4:30 for your weekend warm-up, 1:15 building up to FP1 on the Friday, FP2 4:45 p.m. for a 5 p.m. start for that one, then through to Saturday, FP3 12:15. And then, of course, the pre-qualifying show, 3:30, and that's previewing one of the most extraordinary qualifying hours in all of motorsport. These cars at full tilt around that beautiful Monaco circuit from 4 p.m. The post-qualifying show as we all try and catch our breath from that display, and then race day itself, which provided some of the most emotional scenes we saw all year, in Charles Leclerc winning last time out. Pre-race show at 2 p.m, 3 p.m. race start, and your post-race show immediately afterwards as well. Oscar Piastri still leading the championship then. Max Verstappen has clawed back some points, so too Lando Norris as well. George Russell slightly falling down the order. Guys, what are we looking forward to ahead to Monaco?
Other than absolutely everything. I mean, pole's been decided by less than 800ths every single race so far this season. And I really want to see which of those three, Max, Lando or Oscar, ends up on pole. And I'm sure whichever does, it's going to be amazing.
Davide, for you, how have you enjoyed this display we've seen in beautiful Imola?
We got lucky. Yesterday, amazing qualified. Today, they built up an amazing race, starting from Verstappen at the beginning, Ferrari recovered at the end. Strategy-wise, a safety car that was give us to us a great show. So I really enjoyed it. In Monaco, will be crucial the qualifying. Seems Piastri very strong in that now. Mentally is very tough in there. But I think this victory can give also the push to Verstappen, you know, to starting coming back in the championship. Now he closed a bit the gap. I think he's 22 points behind. So it's getting closer. For us, it's getting better.
Yeah, for sure. Look, Max Verstappen closing the gap, seemingly more comfortable in the car as they begin to bring upgrades here into Europe. And of course, Spain, that flexi-wing directive comes into play. How might that shake things up? But we've got Monaco to come first. Big thanks to Lawrence Barretto, still in the melee of that pen behind us, to Marietta roaming around, to you, Ruth, and to Davide as well, and all of you guys for watching. That was the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, your winner today, and we will see you in Monaco.
Next time in Formula One.
It is a Formula One classic like no other. Side by side they run. What did they do? The grandstands now rise for him.